It sits behind bulletproof glass in a room most tourists only spend 4 minutes in. Not the most famous room in the building, not the room with the largest statues or the most dramatic friezes. Room 3, Egyptian Museum, Cairo. A room that smells faintly of cedar resin and the particular silence of something that has been waiting for 3,000 years to be correctly understood. Most people walk right past it. They glance through the glass, they take a photo, they move on, they carry the image away on their phone, and never look at it again. Because the story they were told about this object is already complete, already closed, already filed under known. But hidden inside it is something that shouldn't exist. Not a rumor, not a misreading. Something measurable. Something documented in peer-reviewed metallurgical analysis, in raking light photography, in X-ray crystallography results that sat in academic archives for years before anyone connected them to the larger question they were silently answering. The golden mask of Tutankhamun was not made for Tutankhamun, not inspired by someone else, not modified in a minor cosmetic way, not commissioned to vaguely resemble another ruler's aesthetic. Made for someone else, and the proof has been sitting there, under the glass, in the light, in front of more than 5 million visitors a year, for over a century, waiting for someone to read it correctly. If you've never heard that before, you are not alone. Stay with this until the end, because what the science reveals is stranger than the most extreme version of this story you might have already encountered. If this is the kind of investigation that keeps you up at night, the kind that makes you question what else we've been told incorrectly, subscribe right now. We publish new deep dives every week, and this particular rabbit hole goes much further than one mask. Catalog number GE60672. That is the official registration number assigned to the golden funeral mask of Tutankhamun when Howard Carter's expedition crew opened the innermost coffin in the Valley of the Kings on October 28, 1925. 3,250 years had passed since anyone had seen it. Carter's field notes record a man struggling to find language equal to what he was looking at. Every description he attempted fell short. He would write a phrase, stop, cross it out, try again. The mask weighs 10.23 kilograms. The ceremonial beard alone, that long plaited structure made of blue glass inlaid gold, accounts for 2.5 kilograms of that total. The mask stands 54 centimeters tall, 39.3 centimeters wide, 49 centimeters deep. Its surface carries lapis lazuli around the eyes and eyebrows, quartz for the whites of the eyes, obsidian pupils, carnelian, amazonite, turquoise, faience, and multiple varieties of colored glass paste. The blue stripes on the Nemen's headcloth are glass. The surface gold was measured at up to 2 layers deep in certain sections, between 1.5 and 3 millimeters thick. By any technical or aesthetic measure, it is one of the most sophisticated portable objects to survive from the ancient world. Carter cataloged it with his characteristic precision. He photographed every angle, he noted the dimensions, he noted the materials, he noted, briefly, that the mask had holes in its ears. He wrote it down, he filed it, and then he moved on. For decades, scholars dismissed it as symbolic, an artistic decision, a stylistic feature of the workshop, or perhaps a reflection of the Boy King's personal history. It became one of those details that sat inside the official record without anyone applying sufficient pressure to it. Because no one had reason to. The story was already written. The mask was Tutankhamun's mask. That was the beginning and the end of the conversation. Then, modern science found something that changed everything. To understand what that something is, you have to start with the ears. In ancient Egyptian royal funerary art, male pharaohs were not depicted with pierced ears on their burial masks. This is not a vague, contested observation. It is a documented convention consistent across more than 1,000 years of New Kingdom practice. from approximately 1550 BCE to 1070 BCE. Every royal male burial mask from this era that researchers have cataloged and examined shows the same pattern: no pierced lobes. The physical hole through which an earring was inserted, and this is an important distinction, because the hole on Tutankhamun's mask is structural, not decorative, was reserved for two categories of royal depiction: women and children who had not yet reached maturity. Tutankhamun was male. He was 18 or 19 years old when he died. He was not a child by any definition the Egyptians themselves applied. And yet, the holes are there. Carter saw them in 1925. He photographed them. He moved on. For 90 years, the details sat inside the official catalog, without generating serious scrutiny. Because the official story was already complete, and complete stories resist uncomfortable details with a kind of institutional inertia that is hard to overstate. Here's where it gets strange. In 2015, British Egyptologist Nicholas Reeves, former curator at the British Museum, long-term affiliate at the University of Arizona, published a formal analysis in which he returned to those ear holes and said clearly and precisely, these holes do not belong on this mask if the mask was made for a male adult. They are not decorative. They are not symbolic. They are structural features left over from the mask's original intended purpose. And that purpose was not Tutankhamun. Reeves laid out 3 separate, independent lines of physical evidence to support this argument. The ears were the first. The gold was the second. And the second is where the story moves from interesting to genuinely difficult to dismiss. In 2007, an X-ray crystallography study was conducted on the mask's gold composition, the most detailed metallurgical analysis ever performed on the object at that point. The research team, using non-destructive fluorescence techniques, mapped the elemental composition of the mask across multiple surface points. What they found produced a quiet result that never quite made it into the standard narrative. The mask is made of 2 measurably different types of gold. Not obviously different, not visibly different to the human eye in a museum room under standard lighting, but different in a way that precision instruments document without ambiguity. The face panel, the oval section representing the king's features, registers at approximately 23.2 carats. The remaining body of the mask, the Nemi's headpiece, the broad collar, the integrated chest and shoulder panels, registers at approximately 23.5 carats. Additionally, the surface coating on the face is approximately 18.4 karat gold, roughly 28 to 30 nanometers thick. The surface coating on the surrounding structure is approximately 22.5 carats. The difference in absolute percentage terms is fractional, fraction of a percent, well within the range of natural variation, one could argue. But the implication is not fractional. In Egyptian royal workshop practice, a single funerary mask was manufactured from a single refined gold batch. The pharaoh's gold was smelted to a consistent purity standard. It was alloyed, poured, and hammered from the same source material throughout the object's construction. The kind of compositional split documented in the 2007 study, face at 1 ratio, body at another, suggests that the face panel was manufactured separately in a different production event from a different batch of gold, and then integrated into a body structure that had already been completed. Not made together from start to finish, made in 2 distinct events, then joined. And if you think carefully about how a funerary mask is actually constructed, that sequence raises an immediate problem. If you are building a new mask for a specific individual, you start with the face. The face is the anchor of the object's identity. The facial likeness is the point. The headpiece, the collar, the chest structure, these are built outward and downward from the face. You would not complete the entire body of a mask in finished form and then add the face as a final attachment, unless the face changed, unless it was changed after the body was finished. They weren't guessing. They were recording. The gold doesn't lie. It measures. And what it measured was not one manufacturing event. It was two. Now, the cartouches. A cartouche, in ancient Egyptian writing, is the oval frame within which a royal name is inscribed. It is not decorative in the way we might think of ornamentation. It is a legal and spiritual designation. It is the king's name in its most formalized, protected form. The cartouche is, in the most precise sense available to the Egyptians, the identity of the owner. You do not change a cartouche. You do not alter it casually. If you change a cartouche on a burial object, you are doing something that has a specific, serious meaning. You are transferring ownership. Reeves examined the cartouches on the mask using raking light photography, a technique that illuminates surface textures at oblique angles, revealing shallow tool marks and subsurface features that are completely invisible under standard frontal lighting. This is not a controversial technique. It is standard practice in papyrus analysis, sculpture study, and architectural survey. It simply reveals surface detail that other lighting conditions hide. Under raking light, Reeves observed what he described as evidence of alteration in the cartouche inscription panels. The letter forms as currently inscribed, spelling out the name Neb-Keperer, Tutankhamun's throne name, appeared to sit over earlier, partially effaced forms beneath. The under inscription, he argued, was consistent with a different royal name altogether. Neferneferuaten. Ankh-Keperer, Neferneferuaten. This was a female pharaoh, one of the most systematically erased figures in the entire Egyptian historical record. She ruled during the end of the Amarna period, the chaotic, theologically radical era during which Akhenaten had dismantled traditional Egyptian religion and reorganized the state around the worship of the sun disk. When Akhenaten died, someone ruled before Tutankhamun ascended the throne. The records for this interim period are fragmentary, contradictory, and in many cases deliberately destroyed by the rulers who came afterward. Most Egyptologists believe Neferneferuet ruled during this transition. Some believe she was Nefertiti, acting under a throne name. Others believe she was Meritaten, Akhenaten's eldest daughter. The identity question is genuinely unresolved, but what is not seriously disputed is that she was female, that she ruled, that she died in office, and that her burial preparations would have been underway when Tutankhamun, a 9-year-old child, suddenly elevated to the most powerful position in the ancient world, became Pharaoh. Not similar to the story of a repurposed burial object, not inspired by it, confirmed by 3 independent physical lines of evidence pointing at the same conclusion. It was made for her, it was modified, and then it was sealed in Tutankhamun's tomb for 3,000 years. In 2024, a team from the University of York returned to the mask with a fresh comparative framework. Their study focused specifically on the ear-piercing question, conducting a systematic survey of documented royal funerary masks from across the New Kingdom period. They cataloged every known instance of pierced ear depictions in male royal burial contexts. Their conclusion was unambiguous. No contemporaneous example of a male adult royal funerary mask with pierced ear holes could be identified in the New Kingdom corpus. Not a single one. Every pierced ear mask in the record matched either a female royal or a figure depicted at subadult age. Tutankhamun's mask has those holes. He was 18 or 19 when he died. He was not depicted as a child on any other funerary object in his tomb. He was depicted as an adult king. And yet the mask that was supposedly made to honor and protect his adult male identity carries the one physical feature that by the conventions of his own civilization marked its wearer as female or juvenile. When you place that finding alongside the 2007 gold composition study and alongside Reeves' cartouche analysis, you have something specific. You have 3 separate physical features: material, structural, and inscriptional, all detected using independent methodologies. all generating the same answer. And if that's true, it means our history is missing a chapter. Now, the institutional response. The Egyptian Museum has not publicly commissioned an independent metallurgical review of the cartouche alteration claim. When the Discovery-era journalists and scholars pressed the Supreme Council of Antiquities on Reeves's 2015 findings, the official response characterized the analysis as speculative. Christian Ekman, the German metal conservator who led the 2015 physical restoration of the mask, a restoration necessitated by museum staff accidentally knocking off the beard during a late-night operation in 2014 and then reattaching it using the wrong adhesive, published his own analysis of the mask's construction. He stated he found no signs that the face was composed of a different gold from the rest of the mask, no evidence of cartouche alteration, no signs of the face being a separately manufactured addition. This directly contradicts the 2007 X-ray crystallography study. One study documents a measurable compositional difference. One conservator says no such difference exists. Both cannot be correct. And here is the uncomfortable detail. No authoritative, third-party, publicly commissioned scientific review has been conducted to settle the question. The technology exists. The mask is accessible. The specific question is narrow, testable, and fully within the scope of non-destructive analytical tools already used on Egyptian antiquities. No test has been announced. The samples are there. The questions are specific. The debate was quietly filed under unresolved, and the placard in room 3 was left unchanged. It was sealed, it was cataloged, and the question disappeared. Now, does this prove the most extreme version of the story? That the entire mask, collar, face, headdress, all of it, was physically pulled from a completed royal tomb prepared for a female pharaoh and handed over wholesale to a dead teenage boy? Probably not. The truth, as it usually does in this field, almost certainly occupies more complicated ground. What the physical evidence does support, even under skeptical reading, is that at minimum, the face panel of the mask was manufactured in a distinct production event from the body structure. Even Ekman's own analysis describes a mask constructed in 2 pieces. The question is not whether 2-part construction happened. It did. The question is whether that 2-part construction reflects standard manufacturing practice or whether it reflects a later modification of a pre-existing finished object. And here is the problem with the standard practice explanation. If you are constructing a funerary mask for a specific living person, you begin with the face. The face is the entire point. It is the likeness. It is the identity. The surrounding structure, the headcloth, the collar, the shoulder panels, is built outward from that central element. A mask body completed first, with the face added afterward, is not how you build a new object. It is how you modify an existing one. That is not fringe archaeology. That is applied logic about manufacturing sequence. So, does the evidence prove conclusively that this mask belonged to Neferneferuaten? Not yet. The cartouche evidence, as Reeves himself acknowledges, requires more rigorous confirmation than raking lake photography alone can provide. The gold composition discrepancy could theoretically have an alternative explanation, but the explanation that this mask is exactly what the official tour describes: a single object crafted in total, from first pour to final polish, specifically and entirely for Tutankhamun. That explanation has a problem. Several problems. Problems with physical evidence attached to them. Problems that have been documented, published, and not answered. Think about what this means if the evidence holds. The most photographed artifact in human history, the single image that has, more than any other, defined ancient Egypt in the global imagination, may carry the face of a woman the official record tried to erase completely. A woman whose name was chiseled off temple walls, whose cartouches were defaced on monuments, whose royal record was systematically dismantled by the rulers who came after the Amarna period. Because everything that period represented, the theological revolution, the disruption of priesthood power, the female and adolescent rulers who had occupied the highest office, was precisely what they needed the world to forget. And yet, her face, if Reeves's reading is correct, may have survived. Not in the temples, not in the official history, not in the dynasty lists, not in the king's records. In the gold, in the object that was too valuable to melt down and too rushed to replace. In the mask that a panicking royal administration grabbed from a nearly completed burial preparation and modified, hastily but professionally. Because a 9-year-old had become Pharaoh, and the people around him were doing what administrators under pressure have always done. They used what was available. They changed the name, they changed the face, they sealed it inside a tomb too small for the king it received, and the erasure that was supposed to be total, the erasure that had for 3,000 years appeared to have succeeded completely, may have failed in the one place no one thought to look. Inside the gold ratios of the most famous object on Earth, in a 28 nanometer thick surface coating, measurably different from the surrounding material, in a pair of ear holes that no male pharaoh's mask was supposed to have, in the ghost of a name still faintly visible, to the right instrument at the right angle, beneath the officially inscribed cartouche. Not a myth, not a metaphor, physical, measurable, still there. Room 3, Egyptian Museum, Cairo. The mask is still in that case. The cartouches still read Tutankhamun. The tour guide still delivers the same story the placard has carried since the 1920s. Millions of people still file through that room each year and spend 4 minutes inside and take a photograph and walk away with a complete, settled, closed story about who made the object and who it was made for. The ear holes are still there. The gold still carries its fractional compositional discrepancy, documented in 2007 and not formally answered since. The surface of the cartouche panels, under the right light, still holds whatever remains of whatever was inscribed there before the workshops of ancient Memphis received new orders in the chaotic weeks after a teenage king died without warning. No new study has been publicly commissioned, no definitive analysis released, no third-party review announced. The face behind the glass, 18.4 karat gold, measurably different from the 22.5 karat gold surrounding it, pierced in both ears the way only a queen or a child was supposed to be pierced, is still looking out at the tourists, who don't know what they're looking at. If that question is sitting uneasily with you right now, good. There is another investigation waiting, one that goes into a different sealed room, a different erased figure, a different object the history books described incorrectly. Watch it next. The link is on screen now. And if this video changed the way you see what's sitting behind the glass in the world's museums, what else might be misread, mislabeled, misunderstood? Hit like and subscribe. We're just getting started.